Hi, I'm Mel from the Money Study, bringing you another episode of our Take 10 Challenge, and up to number 70, all about that transition to retirement pensions. There's my disclaimer: facts and figures, information only. This is not advice in today's video. A transitional income stream. So in previous sessions we've talked about purchasing or creating and our money from super into an income stream. And this is very, very similar, except the only difference is here we are creating an income stream effectively while we are still working. So we're over our preservation age. We haven't reached 65, because once you get to 65, it's no longer transitional, because now you're over that minimum retirement age. There's no preservation. Hence, any pension after 65 is just a simple standard account-based pension. But basically what it boils down to is we are creating a pension. So long as we're over our preservation age, we can start this pension and we do not have to retire. We do not have to retire. We could be working full time. We could be earning 150,000 or 40,000. It doesn't matter what we're earning. Doesn't matter how many days a week we are working. We could be working 1 day a week or 5 days a week. It doesn't matter. We can literally start up a pension immediately from our superannuation, should you wish, as what they call a transition to retirement pension. Now, pretty much you get all the same rules in regard that you can get paid, fortnightly, monthly, and so forth. It literally comes down to that you've got a minimum amount still. So while you're under 65, we've still got that minimum 4% withdrawal. The only problem is, or the only issue is, there is now, while you're still working, a maximum withdrawal, and the maximum is 10%. So effectively you have to take out a minimum of 4. You can take out up to a maximum of 10%. So you can't take out a lump of money while you are still at work. You cannot take out a lump of money. But having said that, I suppose if you created your transitional pension as a one-off annual payment, you could indeed get a lump of money once a year up to 10% of the balance, if that's how you wanted to do it. So the idea is here, of course, that we are still at work. We're still going to need our super fund, because our employer is going to be paying into super. They can't contribute into a pension account. So we still need to have a super account for our employer contributions to go into. And of course, if we're going to continue to do perhaps some salary sacrifice, we need a super fund at the same time that we've got a pension. The pension doesn't have to be with the same company. You could have like an Australian super accumulated account, but have a Host Plus pension account, or whatever you like. It doesn't really matter. Could be with the same company. Also, it doesn't matter. And so, but if you are going to keep your super account open, if you've moved a big chunk of it into pension, most super funds have a minimum amount that you must keep in the account to keep it open. So you may find that you've got to leave $20,000 in your super accumulated component, and the rest perhaps could be moved to your pension arrangement. Up to you what you move. You don't have to move it all. You don't have to move half of it. You can literally move whatever you want. But if you want to keep the super account open, you do indeed need to keep a minimum account balance, and that would depend on the super fund that you're using. Now, of course, why? Why do we want to create a pension if we're still working, if we don't need the money in theory? Well, in theory, yeah, we can always do with more money. What are we going to do with it? We could spend it. So you could literally be working, getting your salary, but have more money coming in that you could then say, okay, this is how I'm going to afford my holiday next year. Or you may still have a mortgage, and you may think, well, okay, I'd rather take my money from my super and pay off the interest on my mortgage, get that mortgage down, pay off some principal of it, because interest rates are getting high, and the interest rates are, if the share market's playing up or things slow down, you could find that interest rates are higher than your super fund returns, in which case it may be practical to do so. So it could just be used for, paying down debt, having a holiday, just improving your lifestyle, doing with the money whatever you wish. No restrictions, doesn't matter what you earn, you can keep on doing this. Now, of course, or you could think, well, gosh, I'm getting a bit tired of this business of working full time. So what I'll do is I'll go part-time these last few years or so up until retirement. And this is where this the ability even came from. That at the time, the Treasurer was basically saying it'd be good if we can keep Australians in the workforce longer, so they keep on paying taxes and not being a burden on Centrelink. So they allowed us to use this strategy. And the idea is that you can go part-time, you're earning less money, but you could draw on your super to supplement your part-time income so that you don't feel any pain. You know, you've still got money coming in from super to supplement what we're getting from our part-time income. Now, that was the strategy by the government, but they made no restrictions on how many hours a week you could work, meaning you could still work full-time should you wish. But not a bad little ploy there. If you're thinking getting towards retirement, if I work another year full-time, I'm going to kill somebody at work, I think it's probably time you went part-time to take a bit of the stress away. However, these rules did open up the door for quite a clever little strategy, which was actually named Transition to Retirement Strategy, where effectively we're still at work. We get paid a pension, money that in theory we don't need. So what can we do with it? We can salary sacrifice it straight back into our super fund, getting tax deductions. And this became quite a powerful little strategy. So this is how the strategy basically works. You can see there, the left-hand corner top, you've got your employer, and the employer pays you some wages after tax. So tax is deducted and the wages go into your bank account. At the same time, your employer is also paying into your super fund, and of course you may be sacrificing some of your salary from your employer and they're putting it into the super fund as well as salary sacrifice. So your employer is doing wages, super and salary sacrifice components. But at the same time, you can have an account-based pension drawing down somewhere between 4% and 10% of your account balance. So if you had $100,000 in your pension, you've got to draw down a minimum of $4,000 in a year, maximum of $10,000. And that money goes into your bank account. And so your total income is the combination of the two. And that's basically how the money is flowing around. Let's now see how that could actually benefit us. If we look at a typical situation where someone is not salary sacrificing, don't have a TTR, transition to retirement, set up, let's take an example here. The employer is paying $100,000 to their worker, plus superannuation contributions. The super contributions are just going into the super fund. This person's not doing any salary sacrifice. They're getting paid $100,000. By the time they get their tax and their Medicare deducted, which is $24,967 with the current tax rules, then effectively what goes into their bank account is $75,033. $75,033. And of course, that's their total income. Their income is what their net pay is after all the tax and so forth has been deducted. But let's now have a look if we apply a TTR strategy. And so what we can do is your employer, you're still getting paid this $100,000, but let's imagine then that we decide to do $10,000 worth of salary sacrifice. We couldn't afford to do that in the past. We just didn't have enough money, but we're going to do it now because we're going to set up a TTR. So our salary has gone down to $90,000. The tax on $90,000 compared to 100 is now down to $21,517. And so the net salary, $68,483, goes into the bank account. At the same time, the employer is paying into the super fund, whatever it may be, PSS, CSS, PSS, AP, Australian Super, Host Plus, doesn't matter. They're still paying their normal things, totally unchanged, still based on effectively the $100,000 income. Still on the $100,000. You are salary sacrificing $10,000, so your employer pays that extra $10,000 into the super fund, but of course you lose 15% as contributions tax. If you haven't had a look, have a look at the little video on salary sacrifice about how all that works. But effectively $8,500 lands into the super fund. Now, And also, what we've done is we've taken some money from our super fund, and in this example, I've taken 65,500, and it sounds like an odd amount, but there's obviously a reason for this. I've taken 65,500 and put it into a pension. And what I'm doing is I've set it up a pension to pay me the maximum that a transition pension will allow, which is 10%. 10% of 65,500 means that money, 6,550, is now the 10% is actually going into my bank account. And because it's coming from a pension, this money is tax-free, and so effectively our combined income here is the total, the 68,483 plus the 6,550 coming from the pension. Our total income, 75,033, which obviously was exactly the same amount of money that we were getting before. Now, of course, if I'd set up the pension for a bigger money, you might have set it up with $100,000. You could do it the other way and just adjust the percentage to get the dollar amount that you need. Totally up to you how you set this thing up, whether you want more money, less money, the same amount of money. It's totally up to you. All very, very flexible, and you can adjust this thing at any time. So you could adjust your salary sacrifice rate. You could adjust your pension rate within that 4 to 10% band, and so forth. And of course, depending on if you've increased or decreased your salary sacrifice, it just means more tax deductions or more or less money into your bank account, and so it goes on. So quite a powerful little strategy. Can be very useful for people who can't afford to do some salary sacrifice as they close in on retirement, but would like to. Obviously, if you already are salary sacrificing up to the cap, then quite frankly, the strategy is really not much use to, because you can't put any more than the cap. And so by doing this TTR, all you've done is created a pension giving you income that you can't put back in as a salary sacrifice. So not a lot of use for anyone who's already salary sacrificing up to the cap. But if you can't get up to that top limit, or you can't afford to do any, then have a look at a TTR strategy. If you were just to Google transition retirement strategy, you'll find umpteen thousand websites that explain this in more detail and so forth. I've given you a bit of a picture here, but obviously, if you do want more details, happy for you to come and see us, and we'll run through it with your numbers to see whether indeed it would work. Look forward to you joining me on another session.